Live.
We are live. Every time you say you're going to push us live and I wait to see it, we're there. So hello, welcome to Unnecessary Roughness. It is me, Jack, and Katie. We are missing Brandon.
It's not just us three today.
It's just us three, but we have a Christmas special. And before we get to that, we want to thank High Noon. As always, Jack taught me something a few weeks ago, which maybe I'm just ignorant, maybe I'm stupid, Katie, I don't know if you knew this, but Christmas is tangerine season. I would have said tangerine season is the summer because it's a citrus fruit. I am a dumb person. Tangerine is Christmas season, and the El Prez pack right now is out. Limited edition, of course, the game day pack and all the regular flavors. HighNoonSpirits.com for your next tailgate. Obviously, college football playoffs are coming up. The NFL season is in full playoff mode. We've got a few more weeks before the postseason. And then, of course, college basketball, all the different reasons that you would be tailgating or watching games at home. Get High Noon. But most importantly, it is Christmas. It is New Year's. It is the holiday season, which means you're probably spending more time with family and friends, which is lovely. Sometimes you need a little bit of extra High Noon to get through it. So again, Drizzly, liquor stores, convenience stores, HighNoonSpirits.com. You know where to find it. And I'm not just saying this for the millionth time for shits and giggles. The tangerine is unbelievable. The tangerine is delicious. Throw one in a stocking. No one will be upset. Thank you to High Noon. Jack, you are our recruiting guy on this podcast. And for years now, we've been doing this. Brandon and I have had an opinion on recruiting. Usually is that we don't care about it as much because if it doesn't come to fruition on the field, we don't care. You have always said you care a lot more about recruiting because it matters more than we play into it. So National Signing Day was this week. I feel like Peter Burns from ESPN actually tweeted this, and it's so true. It's like the kids these days don't realize how stressful old school National Signing Day used to be. It was in February. It was one day a year. You had literal fax machines. You were waiting all day. When I was a sideline reporter for ESPN, I would go on campuses from like 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night and just you sit and you wait all day for the recruiting office to run down and tell you the news so you could break it on ESPN. And then, of course, social media made it a little bit easier. However, now we see National Signing Day. It's split. You have the early signing period, the transfer portal. And overall, I still don't care about recruiting as much as I know you do. I care about it even less now in this time period because I feel like it's kind of anticlimactic. But as somebody who loves recruiting like you do, how did you feel about not just the way that the schools played out yesterday, but just kind of the way recruiting has gone with this new signing day?
To those that say, I definitely, it is a little bit more or less eventful than it has been in the past, without a doubt. It does feel as if the transfer portal has taken the winds out of the sail, per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, it didn't seem like a lot happened yesterday, even though it kind of did. I mean, I felt like it was kind of normal. It was kind of a normal day and whatnot. But to those that say, oh, recruiting doesn't matter as much anymore, you just got to look at the transfer portal. I mean, go look at the transfer portal rankings right now, and then go look at the recruiting rankings. The recruiting rankings are the teams that, and I'm going to remove High Noon. High Noon just was on there for a little bit, and Katie's face, sorry.
Hey, High Noon's always welcome. We know this.
High Noon's always welcome.
Always welcome. And by the way, for everybody that's listening right now, we are live in the chat. I am not good at doing both. So load up the chat. We'll get to your questions. We'll get to your comments. Jack, continue. Pop up in a High Noon chat. Keep it rolling. Continue, Jack.
Yeah. So when you look at the 2024 industry rankings, football team recruiting rankings that's rankings twice, but that's what it says on 3. You have Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, Oregon, Auburn, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, LSU, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Clemson, Penn State. Michigan's a little bit lower. And then you go to the transfer portal rankings, and I don't want to look at the players. I want to look at the team. You're looking at teams such as, for 2024, Louisville, Colorado, Ole Miss. Washington is the exception to the rule, but Syracuse, Kentucky, NC State, Mizzou, SMU, California. The teams that win national championships recruit. The teams that are good, like there's nothing wrong with those teams that I just mentioned. Like there's a reason Kirby Smart spends all his time recruiting and not in transfer portal. That may change in 10 years, but we're far enough into the transfer portal where it's like, all right, there's teams that do care enough about the transfer portal. But everybody does. I mean, you can look at teams and like look at Alabama. Jermaine Burton's a transfer. There's transfers all over, but recruiting's everything, and it'll still be everything. And yeah, you look at the teams at the top. There are some teams that had a good day yesterday. Miami definitely, even though they didn't end up getting Jermaine Smith, who's the number one recruit as a wide receiver, it looked like there was a little controversy with him. It looked like he didn't sign his NIL or NLI.
That was very funny.
And then also it came out through the media that he hadn't sent it in yet. So people were a little bit like, wait, what's going on? But he's at Ohio State. He's a big time get for Ohio State. Ryan Day almost fell to the ground when he heard that he fully committed at his ceremony to Ohio State.
That was also crazy. The whole thing was nuts. Like, it was all dramatic, but Ryan Day's reaction, and don't get me wrong, a massive get, but it's just like Ryan Day has been down so bad because of what happened with Michigan and everything else that it was like he needed that win. It was a tad dramatic.
It was a tad dramatic. Yeah. I think he was playing it up a little bit for the cameras. Like, we get on Ryan Day a lot. I think that he is kind of a funny guy. Like,
but
he just is.
My question. You say he's playing it up. The Lou Holtz thing. And again, I think people are way harder on Ryan Day than they should be, because I understand losing to Michigan is what matters. And he's now lost to them 3 years in a row. Ryan Day still has made the playoffs. Ryan Day has still, whether you say he was born on third base or not, like, you can be born on third base and not continue the success. No, they've not won a national title, but they've been in the picture the entire time. But when he did the Lou Holtz thing this year after the Notre Dame win, to me, that wasn't just like, he's playing it up, he's funny. Like, this is an emotional guy. Nothing wrong with that. I'm an emotional person, but I don't know if he's playing anything up anymore. I think he's down that bad with whatever.
I would say the Lou Holtz thing was more emotion than anything. I think he did care a lot about Jeremiah Smith. That's a big get. Also, he's a wide receiver. Ohio State really, and it rightfully so, has branded itself as wide receiver U, specifically recently. I mean, look at the guys, the names and whatnot. But I think he takes pride in getting the wide receivers, and I think he realized how this Jeremiah Smith kid's legit. He could be an instant impact, especially with Marvin leaving and Julian Fleming's leaving as well. This guy's an instant impact. He's probably coming to campus. I think he's saying early January, so he'll be there early. Who knows who their quarterback will be, but this guy, people say, I mean, he's number one for a reason. Some losers, I feel like there wasn't like a huge winner. I would say, Miami did very well, like I said. There's the who's who at the top: Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. Those two are good. Like, those two, you don't those are two very big wins for those two schools, two new coaches and whatnot. Kind of disappointing years this year. Not awful, but could have been better. But recruiting's important, and top 10 is good for them. Then you kind of you scroll down a little bit and you see one of the bigger losers is Florida. Florida was a top 10, top 5 recruiting class at one point, and that team kind of fell apart. They lost. I'm looking at some of the names that they lost. They lost. I think there was a defensive lineman, Amaris Williams, and then a 4-star linebacker, Darius Hayes. And then Nasir Johnson, Wardell Mack, these are all names, all 4-stars. They flipped from Florida to other schools. That brought down the class. It's still a top 20 class, but not great. And obviously, what Florida fans would point out would be, hey, Billy Napier is that guy recruiting-wise. And now it's like, I mean, they fired Dan Mullen, and Dan Mullen was top 10. I think Dan Mullen had a funny tweet yesterday. I think there was like a frozen margarita on a beach. It was definitely, he knew what he was saying. So, and that was one of those.
Dan and Brandon did tweet this, and if Brandon wasn't asleep right now, he would have this take as well. Dan Mullen getting fired the way that he did, and I understand there was the frustration, and Dan Mullen wasn't really playing up in the press conferences the way that Florida fans wanted him to. That was one of those, the grass isn't always greener, snap decisions. When you look at the last decade or so, that Florida fans have to be like, why did we do this? Because it wasn't like they had a Kirby Smart or a Nick Saban or a Dabo Swinney who was like, is coming to Florida, right? It was like they had to go out and get somebody else. Getting rid of Dan Mullen the way that they did after a disappointing season, but albeit like COVID got in the way and all that, like that has to be one of the biggest regrets of a firing of a coach that we've seen in the last, at least the recent history, but and definitely
did you see their schedule, their last 5 games. I know Katie saw it because everybody was doing memes with it. Their last 5 games of their schedule next year are insane.
Brutal.
Also, another coach that's kind of in that weird spot that had a bad signing day was Chip Kelly. They ranked 60th, I think, in 24/7. Year 7, it has to be better than that. And you just lost a 5-star. Another winner, though, and I mean, it's kind of like last year. Alabama had the best class ever, and no one really cared because they're usually number 1. Georgia, again, just, they dominate recruiting. They dominate, and they lost the number 1 recruit in Dylan Raiola, and they still had the number 1 class, which is very impressive. And they actually, not to like, I know I bring up Connecticut a lot. The quarterback they ended up signing, who's actually been signed with them for a while, Puglisi, I think his last name is from Connecticut. He went to Avon Old Farms. Shout out. That was a rival high school of mine. But that's
a deep-seated thing for you. So you had the way that you just did the list of the top 10 in recruiting and the top 10 in the transfer portal is a very big telling indication that obviously recruiting still matters. And by the way, like, I know recruiting matters, and we've had this argument on this podcast ad nauseum for the last 4 or 5 years. I understand how much recruiting matters. When A&M is at the top of that, I'm going to brag about it because A&M is at the top of it. So obviously it's like a bragging right. However, recruiting for me, especially now with the transfer portal, especially with the way that things happen, it's like, I want to see that class actually come to fruition. Now, in my own little world, A&M's number 1 recruiting class did not come to fruition. The guy that got those recruits is fired. So it's like, you can brag about it in the moment, but then when you see schools like Alabama, like Georgia, like Ohio State, Michigan, you go down the list that continue to be at the top 10 of those recruiting rankings, there's a reason why. And I do believe the transfer portal will catch up to that. But like we said on the last episode, what Lane Kiffin is doing at Ole Miss is a new world of getting these guys on a roster, and it's winning almost immediately because you know what these guys can do on the field because you've seen it at other schools. We don't know what recruits are going to do till they actually put on the uniform and step on the field, which is where a lot of times it's frustrating as a college football fan because you think 5 stars are going to be 5 stars on the field and they're not.
Yeah. 100%. I get the frustration with recruiting, but I mean, like, we sat here in August, right, with college and not college football, well, in college football, but prepping for the season. Mm-hmm. And Brandon said it perfectly, and I agreed with them. It was, Alabama doesn't have like this killer on their team. Where's their great player? Where's this? Where's that? Where's the eliteness? And I don't think he was wrong. But here's the thing. Everybody on their team is a high 4-star or a 5-star. Everybody.
And here we are a couple weeks away from watching them play in the college football playoff.
Yeah. And now, so that's the difference. Like, yeah, they may not have that number 1 pick killer, but everybody else is dominant. And they one of the offensive linemen, then they flipped last year on National Signing Day. Proctor, I think his last name is, the left tackle. He started at left tackle this year, and he's a huge reason for why. I think it's Caden Proctor. I may be making that up, but he's the left tackle, freshman All-American. He's a big reason why Alabama is where they're at. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously Jalen Milroe's he's a scrambler and whatnot, but he's still, like, you need a big-time left tackle. And they flipped him from Iowa last year. The kid's from Iowa, I think. That's how important these little things are. And so, I mean, getting bogged down in like the random names and whatnot, it's not something I do, but the overall winners and losers, I think we'll look back on and be like, oh, that. And I think I would love, this is something I'd have to ask like a Shannon Terry at On 3 or some like Bud Elliott. But the budgets for transfer portal, and I'd like to ask this, the NIL club this too. The budgets for transfer portal and versus recruiting, I think is like, it's kind of like, there's a big difference.
Well, it would be a fascinating breakdown too, because
and I'm sure someone's actually broken it down. I'm not 100% sure, but that's how I would look at something like this in terms of, and you see it in the lists, like Georgia, but goes all in on recruiting. Mm-hmm. Bama all in on recruiting. Yeah, they have little holes next year that they want to fix, and they'll say, hey, yo, come in, like maybe the quarterbacks you signed don't end up well. Then you call somebody up and say, hey, come play quarterback for us. But you're not going to win a national championship in the transfer portal overall. Like there may be a little thing.
I don't know. See, I think that you can. I think it goes back to, can you get the guys in the transfer portal and then have the correct coaching staff and head coach and plan to put?
No, I don't think you can.
You don't think so?
No, and I know what you're saying. I'm not trying to downplay or like discredit your point. I don't think you can, like Ole Miss is putting together the greatest transfer portal class ever. They cannot win the national championship next year.
I don't know. I think it'll depend on exactly how it all fits together. But here's my question. When you look at Washington this year, I mean, Michael Penix did not start at Washington. He is a transfer. When you look at Texas, now I understand Quinn Ewers didn't play at Ohio State, but he is also a transfer. Now, Alabama is there. We already know how good they are. And then Michigan is always at the top, J.J. McCarthy, and there are other guys. But when you look at 2 of the 4 teams in the college football playoff this year, Texas is usually high up in the recruiting rankings as well. But part of their success is because of who their quarterbacks are, who did not come out of high school to go play for those teams.
I think maybe we're probably closer than like we realize. I think it's kind of it's not even the 80-20 rule, but it's like I think you have to do 80% of your work in recruiting, 85%, and the extra fit. But here's the thing: quarterback's everything. So
right.
I'm going back and like I'm in my head right now. It's almost like
I'm in my head too, because as somebody
like
who's
people
always
are like battling, but that's good. It's an interesting question. It's like, because you're right. I mean, but let's remove quarterback, which is almost impossible. I don't like you can't find. Here's the thing. I don't think you can find the trenches in the portal, and that's so huge. And
you know what is, and people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but you know what's going to be a very fascinating case study with that is going to be Colorado, because one of the biggest problems that Dion had, and he said it, publicly, whether people liked it or not, was their offensive line could not protect Shedeur. And now he has gone out in the transfer portal and found an offensive line that looks like on paper it's going to be much better than what they had currently on their roster. Now they're going to the Big 12. It's going to be a different conference, different season, another year with him. But if you can go out and find those pieces on the offensive and defensive line in the transfer portal, then we're going to see that play out, not just at Colorado, but at other places. But that's the most glaring one, because that's what was one of the biggest headlines. Regardless of what you think about recruiting or transfer portal or whatever, what I am fascinated by, and I love the breakdown too, it's what coaches and what recruiting staffs are willing to pay for 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, throughout the years, what they want to look at versus guys who have played 1 or 2 years, 3 years, other places. Because if you have proven talent on the field and you can look at a guy who played at Ohio State and you say, hey, it didn't work out for you there, but the talent at the collegiate level is good enough, come play for us, versus, hey, you played, 5A football in Texas and you looked really good, but we don't know. How much money do you allot for guys that are unproven versus guys that are proven if they were in a different jersey? And I don't know if we'll ever fully get those numbers, but I think we're going to start to see that skew more and more every year.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It's kind of I think I still think recruiting's everything, but transfer portal's so important to almost fill in the holes you lose in recruiting. Mm-hmm. Because theoretically, right, if you get the kid as a freshman and he works out, he's not leaving unless obviously everybody has to work out, because it's like Texas A&M, like Evan Stewart. If Evan Stewart was on Texas this year and he started at Texas, he would have never left. And maybe he would have, because Texas had some tough times. But but if everybody works out, then it's good. It's just, yeah, I think my breakdown, I'm firm in it at this point, is it's 80 to 85% of your work has to be done recruiting, 15% in the transfer portal. That being said, all bearing on the quarterback. Remove the quarterback, I think it's 85-15.
It's also still so early in the transfer portal, and we're still so brand new in it that it's all a case study. And places like Ole Miss, we're going to see come to fruition. We're going to see how it plays out. And, Brandon gave them all the flowers, which, by the way, I loved, because anytime I give Texas flowers, Aggie fans get mad. They're like, Brandon would never say something good about Ole Miss. And it's like, brother, he gave Ole Miss like the biggest compliments ever. And even Ole Miss fans were shocked. But he's right, though, because if Lane can be the difference in not just getting those guys to Ole Miss, to Oxford, but also putting the talent on the field and making it work out, because we've seen 10-win seasons for them, that'll start to change that. But for now, you are 100% right. We know what works at Alabama. We know what works at Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, go down the list, and it's recruiting. I think and this is one of those things where maybe I'm just old, but I miss the pop of that, the Tuesday in February when you had to watch for fax machines, and it was like everything happened on that day. Everything, it was massive. Like, you're watching guys across the country make their decisions on that day, and moving forward after that, it's like, what is this class going to look like in 3 years, in 2 years? Now that seems to have all gone away because these guys transfer so easily. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I miss that pop of recruiting mattering that much on that signing day, because now, I mean, even with the drama that we saw yesterday, it still doesn't have the same effect that it used to. And that's just an evolution thing of college football that we're all going to have to get used to. I just think it's still too early to really decide what matters more. But we do know that high school football players are always going to matter for college, just like college players are always going to matter for the NFL. It just feels a little bit different now. Yeah.
Another loser. I mean, I'm a little confused by it, but like Colorado only has 6 commits.
That's
their average is high. Like, they brought in some pretty good players. I think it's pretty clear what Deion's doing. Deion's going all in next year for Shedeurs last year, and then I think he wants to leave. That's my prediction. I think he wants to.
I've seen a lot of people say that. That's not a terrible take, because obviously it looks like that. I also, and maybe it's just because we don't have enough data on what the transfer portal looks like, but couldn't you see him say, okay, like, we're going all in for this year, and then the next year we'll do the same thing in the transfer portal, and we'll just keep doing the transfer portal game.
No, the only thing is, it's like the transfer portal time and time again. I mean, we'd have to see if that will ever work. You have to have a base. Like, he only has 6 commits right now.
That's crazy.
That's very low. That's almost like the lowest class potentially ever. It's
it
like, that's almost like the level of class as if your number one, or like your coach got caught, or got fired the day before signing day. Low. Like, it doesn't make sense. But it does in the transfer portal world.
And this is again, everybody roll their eyes. I know I'm never going to say a bad thing about Deion, but if he has a bad season next year, which he did, he had the pop at the beginning of the season, fine, but he didn't. I mean, they won 4 games. If they do the same thing, even if they win 5-6 games, where could he go? It's like if he's doing.
No, he's going. I mean, in his credit, it's like he's going all in. It's like,
right.
He's like, I believe in this. It's like his bet. It's like his only bet. If it goes poorly next year, I don't know how Colorado would be able to bring him back.
I think that they would.
Know. That may be a little dramatic, but if it goes poorly next year, I don't know like what would happen.
I think what they would do is look at, the revenue, everything. And if all those numbers were real, which I believe they were probably.
But the revenue, but they wouldn't have like a football team. Like, if it doesn't work next year, I don't know. Like, I guess you just go back to transfer portal and run it back. I'm not saying he should get fired, but it's almost like it's all in on this season. If it doesn't work, there's no base.
There's no very bizarre
blueprint. But I guess he could just run. Let's say they go 4-8 again. They could just run the transfer portal back. But then it's like, what are we doing, dude?
Yeah, no, it's a huge, and like, we said, with the offensive line and everything that goes into it, we'll see. But that was a staggering thing to actually see, like 6 total players. And then you look across the country and you see the same schools with the same top recruiting classes, and you wonder what's going to happen in the transfer portal. But what we do know is that the haves continue to have, and the Nick Sabans of the world, the Kirby Smarts, they're going to continue to get those guys. I miss the fax machines. I'm an old person. Maybe I miss the drama there. But Jack, before we keep going, Katie, before we keep going, you know what? If you love recruiting and you love the transfer portal and you love to put together a team, you know what you can do? You can do the ultimate pro football GM, Jack. You can do it for fun at your home. I know you're a big fan of this.
Yes, Ultimate Pro Football GM. It is an app that you can download on your phone today by going to barstoolgm.com or looking up Ultimate Pro Football GM on the App Store. And then you can use code BARSTOOL in the game store for a 100% free boost to your franchise. That's the franchise that you're going to start when you get the app. And you can do either college or professional. And in the professional, you can even, they have downloadable rosters of teams that do exist. And you can pick your favorite team or just a random team and have some fun with it. It's full-on simulation. See how good you are as a GM. And then also on top of that, you can check out how you are as an owner. It's not just GM stuff. It's the owner, you're setting seats, whatnot. It's very cool. You're literally the head of a franchise. And you should go check it out today. Go to barstoolgm.com or look up Ultimate Pro Football GM on the App Store. Use code Barstool in the game store for 100% free boost to your franchise.
So with National Signing Day, or the first National Signing Day behind us, is there any team, Jack, that you were surprised didn't make headlines yesterday? Because that, to me, like you said, all the haves continue to have. Was there somebody that you were kind of waiting? I know Ohio State had the drama, but was there anybody that you were surprised didn't make headlines?
I mean, USC had a bad day.
Which is the Lincoln Riley stuff. And I know the rumor mill and all of that. Like, is he going to go to the NFL and all that stuff? Like, I don't understand what's going on at USC. I truly don't.
Yeah, they still brought in 20 commits. I'd be surprised if he's leaving. I don't think he is, because they brought in the North Dakota State defensive coordinator or the head coach to be the DC. And then he also got somebody else I think he wanted. And it was clear that he got the money he wanted. Mm-hmm. I think there were some murmurs that he was almost threatening USC to leave, and then they got the money together.
I love the rumor that, like, and obviously Dan was not having it, and it died pretty quickly, but the idea that, like, Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams would both go to Chicago to be with the Bears, and Dan was like, absolutely not. I do not want it. And it's like the fact that Lincoln Riley, because when he was at OU, the amount of times he was the next Dallas Cowboys head coach, like every single year that rumor popped off, and it continues to pop off. And I don't think it's going to stop because he just has these prolific offenses. But if USC can't put together a team like they had a horrible year in what they were supposed to, right? Like what we thought they would, what a lot of people predicted them to have. If he doesn't get a good quarterback in and start to have success right away, then it's going to start to look like, okay, Lincoln Riley truly is an offensive guy that is a product of who he has at quarterback. And if he doesn't have a Kyler Murray, a Caleb Williams, go down the list, then why would we talk about him being in the NFL? Because eventually that rumor is going to have to stop if he cannot win at the college level.
Yeah, the other big storyline was Jordan Seaton, who was the number one offensive tackle out of IMG. He went on Undisputed on December 7th and said that he was committing, or not saying, he just committed to Colorado, and he put on the hat. And he then said, and I quote, "You claim you're a dog. Why are you not coming to Colorado?" ? Yesterday, in the middle of the day, he was then crystal balled to, obviously that's for those that don't know. I assume most of you do know that, but it's like 24/7 says crystal ball. It's their recruiting analyst. They will predict where a guy's going to commit. He was crystal ball to Maryland. Now, he then went on Instagram Live, and then with Hayes Fawcett from On3 Sports, who makes all the graphics. He's a really nice guy. He always supports Unnecessary Roughness. Shout out Hayes.
Shout out Hayes.
His computer was probably on fire yesterday because he made so many edits. But shout out Hayes. He's like, it's funny. Like, you're right. The fax machine days of college football. Remember the Arkansas girl that would and then she was wearing, I think, like a skirt, and she would like bend down and put like whoever committed and whatnot. And it was like, it became, if people are confused, just look up like Arkansas National Signing Day at like dress.
Oh no. The spoofs that came out of that, like, I'm pretty sure the first time, Rhea did, she wasn't like purposely doing the Arkansas thing, but Rhea was like the hot girl for National Signing Day at Barstool when she was like 18 years old. Like it became like a spoof thing, but and even like, obviously fax machines have been out of date for a long time. They were still using them for, there they're still available, but the hot girl part of it became, and the whole thing was so much more entertaining. If you were sitting at home and you were a college football fan, again, whether you feel about recruiting, you know, you love it, you hate it, you're indifferent, that day became like an absolute just show with the hot girls, the recruiting, you know, you had the recruiting team running to the head coach's office. Obviously the girl at Arkansas made headlines, but people across the country were doing it. And that's just gone now. And social media has so many great things. We wouldn't have jobs without social media, but it really has taken away the fun of National Signing Day. And I'll be honest, like if I'm a dude sitting at home watching my, you know, my team get great time high school recruits to come play for my school, having a hot girl announce it wouldn't be a bad thing. And now we just have it on Twitter. It's not as much fun.
No, Hayes Fawcett is the new hot girl, the new hot fax machine girl.
Hell
Hayes
yeah.
Fawcett with his Photoshop. Shout out Hayes. He's the if Hayes Fawcett came up to me on the street, I wouldn't know who he was because he's like he doesn't have like a face. He does have a face, obviously, but but shout out to him. Like if Hayes, if you ever see any of us, say hi. You seem like a cool guy. It's got to be brutal for him working with high school kids, like announcing decommitting, and then he like makes a design. And Katie knows it because she works with college kids, and that's a whole other thing. But Katie knows it from the perspective of like making shirts, and then like they don't come, and he probably has made sick like graphics before, and they don't come out because the kid says, "Oh, I'm not going there anymore."
I say this to Katie all the time. Katie, like the stuff that you have to deal with because you are in charge of so many Viceroy accounts and merch and all that, I cannot imagine. And like your eyes like glaze over when I talk about it. It's like you have PTSD. I can only imagine that for high school kids.
At the end of the day, if a team loses, we put in the vault for next year and hope the upset comes back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
At the end of the day,
that's smart. I didn't even think of that, but Katie's thinking 3 steps ahead.
We did that with the Bobby Petrino, Jessica Durrell shirt. We had it 2 years ago. I forget for what. The moment he was back, we just pulled it out of the vault, went live, sold really well.
Oh, I remember what it was for. It was whenever A&M hired him as the offensive coordinator.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, Katie's the best at what she does because she's able to handle all of that. But anybody who has to be in charge of teenagers, whether they're in college or high school in any form or fashion, like credit to you because it sounds awful. And especially now in recruiting when it's not even just like, you know, there's always been the big time recruits. There's always been the guys, you know, for all of time of college football that you are looking forward to that can put on the hat and they're going to make headlines. Now anybody can make headlines. I mean, a few years ago, we had guys like parachuting out of airplanes, making their commit to whatever school because they know it's going to go viral. Like you have that entitlement, which again, if I was a big time high school recruit, I would do the same thing because everybody can get attention via social media. But if you don't go to a school and then translate to the college level and make a difference on the field, that is way tougher of a look now because of like, I mean, QB1 and all these, I mean, Jack, our favorite guy, Tate Martell. I mean, it's a continuous cycle of you can be the biggest recruit in the world coming out of high school. You can get all the attention, the social media, the girls, all those things. If you don't translate to the college level, you're going to get clowned for how you acted when you were in high school.
Yeah. And on top of it all, Jordan, the guy that I was just discussing, he was crystal balled to, sorry, I just blanked on his name, Seaton, right? Jordan Seaton, I think. Yeah, Jordan Seaton. Sorry about that, folks.
No,
he is crystal balled. He's crystal balled to Maryland at this point. We'll see. He's going to announce tomorrow, I guess. He also put out a tweet. He was like, I'm just a kid. And he said, he was saying like, hey, please be nice to me. I'm just a kid. And that's just, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. I will say he is just a kid, but he did go on national TV. He did say, if you're a dog and you don't want to, like if you're a dog and you're not coming to Colorado, what are you doing? He kind of put it on himself, but then again, also he's 17. I mean, you can't get too much on the kid. It's just the added Dion factor and whatnot. But Jordan Seaton, he's a big get for anybody. I mean, if Colorado gets him, it's big. He's a huge tackle. I want to bring up one other tweet, Katie. Kayce will be back in a second. I think she was just on baby duty. Don't worry, Kayce, if you have to go to the baby in any way. That is,
he is okay. He had some things to say, and he's okay now.
I just want to, and then we can go off of recruiting. This is Georgia's offensive line signees. Okay. This is a tweet from Rady Nabulusi. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Rady or Roddy or however. 6'8", 353 pounds, 6'8", 335 pounds, 6'8", 325 pounds, 6'7", 315 pounds, 6'6", 330 pounds, 6'6", 295 pounds. Those are
Big.
high school seniors. What? And I quote tweeted it and said, yeah, folks, this isn't like, oh, Kirby Smart got a 6'4" guy who was 250 or 230, and then he turned into this behemoth. What are high schoolers going to look like in 25 years?
The picture of the Texas high school kid, and Jack, you quote tweeted it.
Dude, that guy. Also, you want to know what's crazy? He's only a 3-star.
See, like it's just mind blowing. Like I remember, and now obviously we know how good he is in the NFL, but I remember when Myles Garrett came to A&M for his recruiting trip when he was a senior in high school. And I was like, how in the world? Like I was on the field. I was like, how in the world is this guy in high school? Now, obviously he's just like a physical specimen. Like Myles Garrett is, like he's a, you know, like somebody you can point to of like how this guy's a freak of nature. But the fact that like these guys look like that when they're learning how to drive, when they're getting their driver's license, like it's baffling to me. It's crazy.
He signed 6 kids. They're all over 6'6". And you know what's crazy about this? I'm looking at this list of the names are the height and weight that I just said. And I'm looking at 6'6", 295 pounds. I'm like, you got to beef up, bro. Like,
you're not over 300, dude.
I was like, bro, you're kind of small.
I got it.
Like,
you got to put on some weight to hit over that 300 piece.
Imagine like a 6'6", 295 person coming into Barstool Sports. People would be like, oh my God, that guy's huge. Like, and this guy's probably like all muscle, or like he's like about to be all muscle because, you know, he's still like, you know, he's 17. It's turning in from like teenager stuff to like man muscle. But
muscle.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know, but the way you
become a man. The way
you said it was very like you really emphasized the man muscle.
Like, and all these guys will get into and this is huge. I mean, once they all say this, once you get into a college football strength and conditioning program, it's like there's nothing better. And I'm not even accusing these kids of taking anything. Like, I think it's just like pure, just 18 to 21-year-old like testosterone, which is through the roof. And then you have unlimited food and you have the best people trying to make you better. I mean, it's just like the sky's the limit for a lot of these kids who signed yesterday. And here's the fun thing. And like we get on college football kids a lot. And it's like, it's just a kid. A lot of kids' lives changed yesterday. A lot of kids' families' lives changed yesterday. And I think that's like, and I'm not saying it's the fans are the reason that happened, but you could say, hey, like we are like, that's because like, if you care about college football and you support your school and you support your NIL collective and you support the players, and even if you yell at them sometimes, whatever. But the reason that it's so big and the contracts are so big is because like fans care and they watch and they want it to be a big thing. And so a lot of kids' lives changed forever yesterday, and a lot of kids' parents' lives changed, their families. And that's really cool. And I know we look at these guys and we're like, oh, God-given. A lot of these kids work really, really hard and like
these are dreams coming true. I mean, this is truly like, and I mean, Katie, you obviously, you know, you were an athlete in college. Like this is what you work for when you're growing up, when you're in elementary school and junior high and high school. Like your dream is to be able to play for, even if you have a specific college you want to, but to be an athlete at the collegiate level is what you worked for, right?
I still remember to this day, the phone call I got was like, you're coming to UNC, you know we're going to college, you're done, signed, sealed, delivered. Like I can tell you exactly the moment, the day where I was on my high school grounds, and I hung up and called my parents. It was like that kind of thing.
That's incredible.
No, I mean like, yeah, that's like so sick. And just, I mean, not to diminish rowing, but it's like even something like compared to college football, like it's like, and a lot of these kids work really hard and they sacrifice, and their parents do. And a lot of them come from like really, really tough backgrounds and they find a way out. And that's really cool. And, you know, A lot of them come from really tough areas and then find a way to, they stay focused. There's a lot of, especially now in like social media age and whatnot, there's so many influences. And so a lot of these kids, yeah, you can get on them like the Ole Miss signee who showed up in a Ferrari, drove it to sign his NLI for Ole Miss. I'd assume the kid rented that. I mean, also you can rent that for like probably Mississippi for like $300. Okay, so people were getting on him. They were like, he burned through his NLI. It's like I was like, or NIL. I was like, he probably just rented. You can get a Ferrari like that for like pretty cheap for a day.
Also, it's usually like the grown, and I'm going to say grown men, which is a little bit sexist, but grown people. It's mostly men when it comes to college football. It's these grown men who look back and they're like, I can't believe he's doing this. It's like, what were you doing when you were 17 or 18 years old? And if you had the means to be able to do those things and you could get that attention, like I know hand up, like if I was that young and I was given the keys to a Ferrari that I got to go sign to where I was going to get to play college football, you better be damn right I'd be driving that car. So and that's where the recruiting thing does get weird. And we've talked about this too, where it's like, these are actual children, not like, oh, college kids with their adults. Like these are actual like minors, right? Like they're, some of them are 18 and that's fine. A lot of them are going into college. The whole thing can start to get weird. At the end of the day, they are making their dreams come true, at least for the next step. And a lot of them obviously probably dream about playing in the NFL, regardless of what sport, you aspire to that next level. And, Katie, I can't imagine how that felt to know that you were getting, an athletic scholarship. Like me opening up my acceptance letter to A&M as just a random paying tuition student was like one of the best days of my life. I still remember exactly where I was, and I was just paying to go to school where I wanted to go. So the fact that like these kids get these memories, like we can downplay recruiting all we want, but it's a phenomenal thing. And also it's, by the way, we don't say this enough, it's so badass that you were an athlete at UNC. Like I don't like, we're schleps. Like we didn't do shit. You actually were like a D1 college athlete.
It was rowing. Like
who cares?
Who
cares? No, I'm not going to let you downplay that. Like you were a D1 college athlete at North Carolina.
It was cool. I was on the Metro North the other day, and I had like the UNC puffer, which I definitely wear too much. I'm too far gone. I think it was Jay Williams was the seat across. I just pulled the jacket, pointed to the sign, and it was just like, go heels, and like sat back down. It was just like,
you don't give yourself enough credit, but also like you should talk about it more, because like everybody at Barstool that like we all pretend.
I get why she doesn't talk about it. You don't know rowers, Kayce. Like rowers, and right. Katie probably knows this. Rowers, like they have this rep of being like making rowing everything. Like it's rowing this, it's rowing that. And I think Katie probably made the conscious decision to kind of be like, I'm leaving that in the background. But
I also know it's like when we talk about sports, it's like college football, basketball, like at UNC, if it was soccer, women's, if field hockey, lacrosse is another thing. We were very much like, I just very self-aware. I'll talk about it when I want to. Like I'm medically retired. I'm washed up at this point, but it's like the reliving your glory days. You don't, unless it's something you want to ring, no one wants to hear about it.
No one wants to hear about it in general. However, working at a company like Barstool Sports, where there are very few people who actually played college sports, I feel like on this podcast alone, like Brandon brags about winning the dunk contest when he was like 15 years old. You should be like, yeah, well, I played college sports. So I was a collegiate athlete at North Carolina, by the way, not just like some tiny little school. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. Speaking of UNC and ACC, it looks like Florida State's trying to secede from the ACC again, starting tomorrow.
I think no. Yeah, and I think we saw this over the summer, and then what happened this year only, I think.
Oh, they were already like 1 foot out, and then
if they leave, Clemson's going to. It will be just get ready. We're about to do it again. Like
it's going to be, I mean, I'm already, and I know that like we do this for a living, but like the amount of times that next year when we're talking about the games and who's in what conference, like that's already going to be hard enough. It's not going to, eventually I think it'll all even back out, but for the next few years, it's going to be crazy. And if I'm Florida State, like I would not be actually going to like the legal route. Like I think that's ridiculous. Like we don't actually need to get like an investigation going. Like we know very clearly why you were left out of the college football playoff, but I would absolutely leave the ACC. Not that it was the ACC's fault, but in reality, they were already wanting to get out anyways. And the ACC definitely did not help their cause.
Yeah. And just so like nobody, I agree with you, Kayce. But they'll probably get, and I know you didn't mean this, they'll get the legal involved to get out of that grant of rights.
Yes, I
Yeah,
meant
you were
for,
saying yeah. I'm sorry.
I
I
don't think
was
they should
like,
get the legal involved for getting left out of the playoff.
yeah, no,
The suing people for getting left out of
In
the college football
Florida
playoff.
State's defense, those are all politicians doing that.
Oh, yeah.
That's not Florida State. So like
No.
I know people have gotten on me before, our Florida State fans, and said this, that, the other. At least I haven't gotten the Herb Street treatment, but to back up Florida State, they're not the ones legally. That is all politicians, probably trying to get some more votes. Which I mean, whatever. You're doing you're playing the game. Lastly, a Alabama player was arrested by the Tuscaloosa PD. He's a backup, but he plays. He gets some snaps. He's a freshman, for allegedly, knowingly passing an STD, which I assume means, and actually I assume he knew he had an STD and still had sex with somebody, or had like and that is a crime. They tell you that in like middle school. So
It's also just like, you're just a bad fucking person if you do that. Like,
so I want to, with the guy, like I wanted it to play out. It's alleged now. It's arrested. It could be wrong. I want to give but if that is true, you're right. That's awful.
it's just gross. Like,
yeah, be careful, guys. Get tested, and if you do have it, I'm sorry, I'm having like a sex ed talk, but like you have to talk about it. Like you have
to be responsible. Like, STDs can happen. Like, it's not like you're a gross person.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no, it's
like,
no, yeah.
But if you knowingly, and I mean, listen, college is a crazy, it's crazy experience for everybody. So everybody's doing whatever they want, and that's fine. But like, if you know for a fact that you have a sexually transmitted disease, and you leave the doctor's office and you're told that, which, by the way, like, why not, again, allegedly, why not get the team doctors to give you a shot or a pill or whatever to get rid of it? Fine. But you then go sleep with somebody or have sexual contact with somebody and pass it along to them. You're just a bad person. Like, just wait till you're cured, dude.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hope this is a misunderstanding and nothing.
I do too.
But but from a football perspective, it's not a significant loss, but it is a loss. He does play. He is a backup, but he does play on and whatnot. So we'll see. Awkward conversation to have with Nick Saban, man.
My
Imagine
God.
having to talk with Nick Saban about I would care more about get that conversation with Nick Saban than getting arrested.
I honestly can't think of a coach I would rather sit down with less to explain that I allegedly knowingly pass along an STD than Nick Saban. That would be the number one person I would not want to have a talk to about that.
It would just feel so like, also it's tough. I mean, if he did it, that's life. You get what you deserve. But like, if it's tough now, that guy like is going to be known as like, that's why you don't do it. But that's why you don't do it. Like, there's consequences in life. Like, you get what you deserve. And but be careful, folks. Please get tested if you're sexually active, because I thought never mind. Go ahead. Sorry, Katie.
On the other hand, with consequences, it looks like Jim Harbaugh has not learned his lesson. I don't know how serious this is, but the level 1 violations that are coming down again.
No, but that's from COVID.
Yeah, but like it's a new report. It's a new notice of allegations, isn't it?
Your tweet was so funny when you put it like in parentheses, like, again. It is like they've got it, fair or not, they've got it out for Jim Harbaugh right now. They're like, we are hell bent on making this guy.
Yeah, the NCAA is gonna investigate Jim Harbaugh. They sent him notice of allegations for giving the STD to the Alabama player. He's under investigation for that right now. So Kayce, unless Katie, are we missing anything?
Before we get to the Christmas questions, we know what we are missing: how important it is to have unwanted subscriptions taken care of by Rocket Money.
Yes.
Because Jack, we've talked about it. There are a lot of sponsors of this show, a lot of advertisers on this show. Some I used before. All of them I use now that they're friends of the podcast, but Rocket Money is one that I was using prior to them coming on board with Unnecessary Roughness, because not only can they help you cancel unwanted subscriptions that you probably don't know that you even have, because it's so easy to sign up for them, whether it's on your TV, your phone, your computer. It also helps you budget every single month, and it's a free app. So you can go to rocketmoney.com/rough. You can sign up and you can see exactly, what your subscriptions are, tracking your planning. If you have kids, you can separate like a budget a month for daycares, for formulas, for diapers, for school. If, you're somebody who spends a lot of money on beauty supplies, on tools, whatever it may be, they can help you categorize it all. So you don't even have to do it on your own. It's just on the app. But most importantly, and we hammer this home, is how many times you've signed up for a free trial of something, you forget you signed up for it, and monthly it comes out of your bank account, comes off your credit card, and you're not even realizing it until you're pissed because you're like, I just spent X amount of money, something I've not even been using. So go to rocketmoney.com/rough. It is free. You can help yourself and help yourself cancel unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/rough. And 5 million users are using it, which is great. 5 million and counting. We love Rocket Money. I've loved it for a long time. Love them even more now that they're friends of Unnecessary Roughness.
Yes, shout out Rocket Money. So easy to use, and it is worth it. It will save you money, time, whatnot. Because man, I tried to cancel a subscription the other day, and it was just the worst. It was like,
well, and they
I didn't even actually, to be honest, I don't think it's not canceled yet. So I have to go to Rocket Money because they'll probably just push it through, because it was like I had to send 8 emails. It was a whole thing. But Rocket Money, I was an idiot. I should have went to Rocket Money.
Yeah, no, they do it for you. Like, that's a huge thing too. It's not like just like, hey, by the way, you're spending this money that you're not using the thing. Like, you just click like cancel it. They ask you a couple things, like different information for whatever app or product you're using, and they cancel it for you. It's phenomenal. We love Rocket Money. Okay, so if you are watching or listening to this podcast live right now, I want your interactions. I'm going to have to lean on Katie and Jack to push them across, because if I try to read the chat and do this, it's a nightmare. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, every time we have a holiday this year, I have done a little exercise, we had a Halloween one, we had a Thanksgiving one. Brandon was supposed to be here. He is not. So we're having a Christmas special without Brandon. It's fine. I've got some questions going into Christmas. This will be our last episode.
And Kayce, this segment is actually, it's breaking news.
Yes.
This segment, because they've been so great. The holiday segments, Halloween, Thanksgiving, whatnot.
Oh, Jack, stop giving me compliments. I hate it so much.
This is brought to you by our good folks who we've already talked about tonight, the Ultimate Pro Football GM app, which you can go and download right now. If you go to barstoolgm.com or look up the Ultimate Pro Football GM on your app store, and you can, as I've said earlier in the show, you can get to simulating, get to work on that franchise, man.
Yes, it is brought to you by 2RK Games. Okay, so I have a whole list. We've been going for over 50 minutes, so we'll go until, I know we said we'll get out before Thursday Night Football. So Katie, Jack, I want you both to answer these questions and also pull in questions from the chat, because they're always very, very good at interacting with this. Okay, the first 2 are very easy Christmas questions. If you were playing Santa Claus, if you were giving out gifts this year and you had your list and you were checking it twice, Jack Mac, who would be number 1 on your nice list of college football for the 2023 season?
Nice list?
However you want to take that. Who would be, like, when you're looking, you're like, you're checking that list and you're like, this team, this coach, this player, number 1 on your nice list.
Nice list. All right. I was going to say, I'm going to give a special Christmas gift to Connor Stallions. He's the nicest in my opinion. But all joking aside, I think Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix, just some very nice fellas, and they've had such a nice season. They deserve a great Christmas. They were broken up, and then also the chat just said it. Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis deserves the best Christmas ever.
Oh my God. So my answer was actually Michael Penix, because I don't know him personally, but I do. It felt like he actually, like, the
shout
way
out Jesse Adams. He doesn't miss a live stream. This guy. He doesn't miss Unnecessary Roughness or Spinning Backfist. He's sometimes mean to me, but you know what? if you're in every live stream, you can be mean to me. I don't care. Like you're
if you're supporting, you're here. Michael Penix to me is one of those guys where it's like I wanted to see him succeed because of the way Indiana fans, like he was, had so much potential, had all the I don't even know if it was the confidence in the world and Indiana fans were mean to us, by the way, when we were leaving Michael Penix off of lists. And then it fell flat, and then he went to Washington, and it was almost like he got a second breath of life. And again, I don't know him personally, but he just seems like a nice guy. Like he seemed like a guy that it was easy to root for him this year. It was easy to root for that team. But I have to say, I think Jordan Travis is the right answer. I didn't even think about him, which again, I'm forgetting Florida State, but that's a great answer. Katie, do you have a different one?
I would do David Braun, Northwestern. I agree with other ones, but to add them, I think they were just given him especially. He was a new guy. I think it was his first year at Northwestern, given a really hard situation. The locker room was all over the place, and he got it together, and they're in a bowl game. So I think they had a very nice season. I want good things for them. I want Northwestern to be happy, and like they deserve it. They tried and have a really good year.
This is not our last episode. We'll have a college football playoff preview episode.
This is our last episode before Christmas. Now we'll have multiple episodes. So we'll have the college football playoff preview, and then we will be live after the college football playoff semis.
Which is the new year. That's the new year.
Oh, yeah, it is. So we'll have one. So
a week from today will be our last 2023 episode.
Again, December 20s, the Bermuda Triangle. They don't exist. Yes, we will have a full college football playoff preview, and then we will also have
instant reaction.
Instant reaction. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Okay.
Thomas keeps saying this. The kid was in the portal and then got removed from the portal. He's not in the portal anymore.
So he's staying at Bama?
Who? The STD kid?
See, that's what we're talking about.
Allegedly.
Yeah. He's not. He was in the portal and then he may have got the STD from the portal. I don't know, man.
Also, imagine the fact that regardless of if it's a fake story or he's like falsely accused or whatever, forever he is the STD kid. Like,
no, that's what I'm saying. It's tough.
I know. Like what you just said it. It's like, I mean, allegedly he's the STD kid, but if it wasn't true, yeah, it's the STD kid. Okay, so the opposite. And I feel like if Brandon was here, I know who he would say. It's a pretty easy answer. But if you were playing Santa and you were checking your list twice, who would be the number one on the naughty list?
Assuming you mean he's going to do Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon, Michigan could win a national title this year. They could win a national title next year. They could win a national title every year. Brandon would still say they were cheaters. And that's a fair thing to say because of what we've seen. But he would say Jim Harbaugh in Michigan here. Would you put them there?
I would, for the more comical sense, I don't like genuinely believe it, but I think they've been the biggest villains this year. I'm more close to giving Connor Stallions a present for the content he gave us. But I think if you have to pick a villain for this year, it is them.
Yes. Jim Harbaugh would be number one on the naughty list. Now, if you're a Michigan fan, you would not put him there. But in general, as a college football fan, it is absolutely Michigan and Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, the chat has one. Mel Tucker. Yeah.
See, this is why I love the lives with the chat. And I'm so bad at multitasking, but I wouldn't have even thought about Mel Tucker when that all happened. And I know, Jack, you put your beef aside because you were right about Michigan State, but Mel Tucker feels like that happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, no.
That feels like that wasn't this season, but it absolutely was.
No, no. For Florida State fans, we all know who's on the naughty list, the College Football Playoff Committee.
Great answer. I know you agreed with the decision, but you can still say that was a naughty thing to do. Bo Nix is on the nice list, brought Chick-fil-A to Oregon. I love Chick-fil-A. Okay, if you could get not UConn, not North Carolina, not A&M, and if Brandon was here, Mississippi State, if you could gift one good season to a team who deserves it the most, Katie, who would it be?
I think Florida State next year for this.
That's the poor Florida State. They won a national championship in 2014. I'm not sorry, Katie. Go ahead.
No. This is my spur of the moment to have an answer.
No, I agree with you because I feel so bad that they're not playing in the college football playoff this year because they fucking should be. I know that it's a better matchup with Michigan and Alabama, and it's more exciting. Florida State should be in the college football playoff this year. Point blank, period.
Amending. If I can do this. Either Oklahoma or Texas, their first year in the SEC, if they just, I don't think they will, but if they go in, sorry, Kayce, if they go in and just like everyone's doubting them for the Big 12, if they just go in, maybe not win it, but like win a division or a bubble, I think that would be fun.
How dare you?
Sorry.
How dare
Washington State.
That's a good answer.
Washington State and Oregon State, they've had a tough.
They getting left out of the Pac-2 and all of that, or the Pac-12. I feel so bad for them. And I mean, and obviously like Oregon State, can you imagine if you're a fan of one of those teams right now and you're just like, what the fuck, man? Like the Pac-12 is not even that old. Like the Pac-12 has not been around that long. And now they're just looking around.
I don't feel bad for Florida State. I just don't. You won a national championship 9 years ago.
They should be playing for one again.
I don't care. It's like it's almost like, oh, you got broken up with the hottest girl. The second hottest girl wants to date you now. It's like, oh, get over yourselves.
They went undefeated.
What about Penn State?
Play better. Like you have to beat.
They won every game.
Yeah, but they didn't. Like their last two games, they didn't really play well.
I mean, Jordan Travis got hurt, but my answer was Florida State, just because I feel like, regardless, like I think that they would have gotten killed in the playoff, and that would suck for fans. But ad nauseum, microwave take, whatever. If you win every single game on your schedule in the Power 5 and you win the conference, you should be playing in the college football playoff. Florida State is my answer as well. Also,
at Penn State to finally beat Michigan and Ohio State, just to see what would happen. I think I don't know what it's going to take, but for them to win the Big Ten. Well, now they have Washington and Oregon to worry about, but
James Franklin, like if he doesn't do it again next year, it's like, I understand, like they're winning 10 games and I understand they're always in the conversation, but like at some point you just gotta be like, all right, dude, like you're never getting us over this hump.
Is there a point though? Like it's the Kirk Ferentz, like you lose the games, you don't get there, but you're still 10-2. What is it going to take for James Franklin to be fired if he's just consistently at 10-2, ignoring the Washington, Oregon, but you 10-2, you lose to Ohio State and Michigan every year. Is that ever gonna be enough to fire him?
I think you have to have a guy that you know for sure will come in that's a bigger name, or that you are more confident in, because James Franklin is a good coach. So like if you don't have, like, you can't, I don't think you can get rid of him if you don't have somebody that like on the back burner that you know could get the job done. That's just what I would think, because if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm frustrated that you can't beat Ohio State, you can't beat Michigan, but I don't want somebody that's going to come in that's going to win 4 games a year either.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could pick one team in the 2023 season that was given a gift they didn't deserve, that was given too much credit, who would it be, Jack?
Probably the number one answer at first would be Colorado, but I mean, I think we kind of we circled back on them. Ole Miss probably got a little bit too much credit for how how well they did this year. UNC, but I feel like we figured it out with them. Like I'm just trying to
my answer would be Oklahoma, for the way that they acted after they beat Texas.
Yeah, Oklahoma's a great one.
I mean, the way, and we said it would come back to bite them if they didn't beat Texas again in the Big 12 championship. They didn't even make it there. And, Brandon got to take his victory laps around that. But it's crazy to look back now at how they treated that game. Yes, it's a rivalry game. It's one of the best rivalry games in the country. And you have to do the hype videos and all that. But like they won a national championship that week, and they didn't even play for the conference title.
Yeah, I think that's a great, probably the best answer.
I mean, Colorado is obviously probably the easy one too, just because they dominated headlines. But I do think that the people who wanted to hate on Colorado early in the season, like they were still taking their victory laps every single week, but it was like, because they only won 4 games, it didn't continue. Like once it looked like they were done going into the bowl season, it was like, okay, like, all right, yeah, you made your point. Okay, who was, again, player, team, for you, Jack, when you look at the college football season, who do you feel like gave you the most joy this college football season?
Most
team,
joy.
coach, player, the most joy. Who was the most giving to you?
I know one if Jack needs a second to think.
All right, Katie, go ahead.
It might be also Jack might have it too. Connor Stallions, I think. Just the content.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Good answer.
That was Katie's so right. That
Yeah.
entire storyline, it was, yeah. No, I mean, that everything about it, and I didn't even have to feel morally wrong about it. He didn't really, except for the people he ripped off of the vacuum cleaners, but
I
It's
still
no
don't
wonder you
understand it.
hate it. It's so entertaining.
Yeah, and it wasn't a criminal thing. Like, it wasn't like he was being, whether you think it was like a bad thing because he was cheating. It was like, it wasn't like he was doing something where you're just like, that's a bad human being. I would also like to take this time to thank the Texas A&M, whoever made the decision to fire Jimbo Fisher. I appreciate that. That was the gift that I was asking for years. And yes, I understand people are digging up old tweets. Katie, when we beat you guys in the bowl season a few years ago, when I was drunk and happy and I said I love Jimbo Fisher, I was lying. When they got the #1 overall recruiting class, I was very happy. I was lying. I want Jimbo Fisher out, and I thank you very much for that. But the overall answer is absolutely Connor Stallions, because the going into this, even midway through this season and going into, who's going to be in the college football playoff, the fact that we got the storyline of, if Michigan was cheating, are they going to lose to Penn State? Are they going to lose to Ohio State? And we've got a guy writing a 600-page manifesto, the gift that keeps on giving. Okay, Jack, for UConn next year, New Year's resolution, Christmas season, going into New Year's. What is your New Year's resolution for UConn football?
man,
Do you have one?
not really. New Year's resolution is find a conference, I would say.
That's sad.
It's tough. We're kind of like we're not just overweight. Our career, like, we're on January 1st, we're not just overweight, like, our career stinks. We don't have any relationships. Our financial situation, like, we have to change like everything. But I will say it seems as if the transfer portal has been kind to UConn so far. It takes away a lot, but I think you can kind of, if I'm, not to go too much in the weeds, but if I'm UConn football, I'm saying, hey guys, you can come here, play as a freshman, play right away. And then if you are really good, as good as you say you are, you can then go and play at a top tier school. There's a lot of players that have done that so far. And on top of it, it seems as if the transfer portal on the guys that are coming from the Power 5 level back down to the G5, it appears as if UConn's been okay with them so far this offseason. And the NIL collective has done a pretty good job. Shout out the D'Amelios for that, and some other UConn donors. But shout out Mark D'Amelio in the D'Amelio Husky Foundation, I think it's called.
Katie,
But yeah, that's my New Year's resolution.
Anyone for North Carolina, Katie?
I hope Max Johnson lives up to the hype and the SEC experience comes in. But
best of luck.
I think my biggest thing is the defense. It got a lot better in the first half of the year that I think it regressed. Just have at least an average defense. That would be my one ask. I think offense can hold their own. Just average would be great on defense. That's all I want.
Mine would be just live up to the expectations, not to, immediately expect a national championship, but to not be the punchline of not meeting expectations, to compete for being in the SEC title game, please, for the love of God. Okay, as a whole, what is your New Year's resolution, Katie, for all of college football? Because we've seen so much change. We've seen a lot of things that are good, a lot of things are bad. What do you want to see moving forward after this new year for college football?
I think the fans, to not, whether you like the sport or hate the sport, keep talking about it. I like the discourse and like all the shit on Twitter. Like, fans are crazy and always going to be crazy. So it's like, hey, if you're mad about something, go tweet about it. So we have we have like the content for it. I think just college football Twitter, whether you love it, you hate it, you fear it, anything, if it hates you, it's just phenomenal content, that the gift that keeps on giving. People will always say, oh, Elon's going to destroy the app. I think college football is single-handedly, college football Twitter is going to keep that app alive if anything else dies.
That's such a great content answer. Like Katie, like Jack, Katie's like professional brain. She's like, I just want more content. Jack, do you have one? What do you want to see mostly for New Year's resolution in college football?
Less commercials.
That would be the gifts that you want for Christmas, just less commercials. For me, it would be just everybody shut the fuck up and embrace the 12-team playoff because it's finally here. Like, we have one more of the 4-team, and I understand you might not like it, but playoff expansion is finally here. Let's embrace it. I love it. It's going to be great. It's 8:15, so I know we said we would get off before Thursday Night Football, so I had a lot more questions, but you know what? We talked a lot about recruiting and transfer portal. The biggest thing is I want to say we will be back again. Hear us out. We will be back before the college football playoff. So one more episode in 2023. But for Christmas, I want to say, whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, thank you so much for listening to Unnecessary Roughness this year, because we are, we're a family, for better or worse. If Brandon was here, I'm sure he would say the same thing. We appreciate everybody. Love us, hate us. You're not apathetic to us. Have a fantastic holiday with your family. Travel safely. Enjoy college football. Enjoy this Bermuda Triangle. And thank you to Jack and Katie for always being here for me. Happy holidays. Drink your high noons. Anything else, guys?
Oklahoma fans, this applies to you too. We love you too. Even though you think we hate you, we value you and all fan bases. We love you.
It is the season of perpetual hope. And that is what everybody in college football has. We cannot wait to talk about the college football playoff. The Barstool Arizona Bowl will also be, we're going to be there. So everybody enjoy your holidays. We will be back next week. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out.
See ya.
Like the video
for Christmas.